Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another installment of the Wayne Public Library Virtual Jazz Series. And today I have the great pleasure of chatting with the wonderful jazz guitarist, Dave Stryker. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, happy to be here, Patty.
So there's many great interviews of you on YouTube as well as with articles and such. So hopefully we'll touch on something new. And you have quite a vast career for someone who's actually as young as you are. So and we're going to try. We're going to
I'm
try
not
to
as young
cover.
as I look if I look young.
You must have the fountain of youth in your backyard there.
Yeah, I'm out on my deck, right?
So there are many hats that you were wearing, and it's something I introduce all my interviews with, the different things that each wonderful interviewee accomplishes. So of these hats, you are a guitarist, you're a composer, an arranger, an educator, a producer, you own a record label. Is there anything else I'm missing?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you covered it.
All around good guy.
Yeah.
Now, there were some great quotes describing your playing. Pat Metheny describes you as one of the most joyous feels around. And Ken Michele, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from Jazz Times, says you are a storyteller in sound in the highest degree. And those are some really wonderful compliments.
Yeah, I think it's Ken McAuliffe. I think that's what it is. Yeah. Well,
So
thank you, Ken, and thank you, Pat, especially.
I noted that you had started guitar at age 10, and of course you went the rock route as probably most of your friends were doing. And then it wasn't until you were a little older that you were turned on to jazz. I noted that you play both acoustic and electric. Do you still play both? And do you have a preference of one over the other?
Well, you play acoustic guitar in certain instances. On my upcoming record that's coming out in January, I played nylon string guitar on that one. I would say primarily, though, I think of myself as an electric guitarist. In jazz, we have what's called, it's a hollow body guitar or a semi-hollow body electric. And my main guitar is going to be more of a semi-hollow body. So, yeah, I do occasionally play acoustic too as well.
Did you choose what's the brand of your semi-hollow body, and is there a certain sound that you like over another brand or a different type of guitar?
I've been playing a Gibson ES 347 for many years, but I also have several other Gibson's older jazz boxes, we call them. I have quite a collection, and I would say my main guitar is this Gibson 347 that's on a lot of my records. But I also have I endorse Benedetto guitars. They're a U.S. Guitar company out of Savannah, Georgia, that's make fantastic instruments. And I have couple of their instruments. Yeah, I have just different guitars depending on the situation that I need them for. But my main would be the Gibson, which is been around forever. Gibson guitars, and yeah, I have too many guitars at this point.
Is there ever such a thing as too many instruments that you play actively?
Yeah, well, my wife would think so, so they're filling up the spare bedroom.
I had the great pleasure of interviewing both John Pizzarelli and Martin Pizzarelli, and we were talking about the fact that their father's Bucky Pizzarelli's 7-string Benedetto is in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Bucky was cool. I liked him a lot. He was a great guy, legend. Yeah, Benedetto's great company. And depending on, the gig, sometimes I just say, oh, I feel like playing something different, and I'll bring my Benedettos out. Beautiful instruments. Yeah, for sure.
Do you play any other instruments besides guitar?
I played bass and a little bit of drums, very little piano. Wish I could play better piano, but mainly guitar.
Did you learn to read music when you were young, so that you could, so that that aids in your compositions?
Um, when I first started, have that be able to write it out.
But that means you also have a wonderful ear.
Yep, yep. That's part of being a good musician is having a good ear for sure.
So I had the notation that when you were in high school, that was your turning point of discovering jazz. And it seems that two saxophonists had guided you early on. One was Bobby Thompson, who kind of took you under his wing, and then also at the Jamie Aebersold camp at Wichita State University, tenor Joe Henderson was your combo teacher. So it's interesting to me that two saxophonists had a place in guiding you.
Yeah, when I was first coming in Omaha, I was playing in rock bands, and I went to a jam, started going to jam sessions, and that's where I met Bobby Thompson. He was a local sax player, older than me, and he kind of took me under his wing and got me started learning jazz standards. And I would go over to his house and very much learning, by ear on my own. And then I went to that Jamie Aebersold camp in around 77 or 6, somewhere in there. And for a couple summers down at Wichita University. And Jamie Aebersold would be a big influence as well, too, just the fact that he had those camps going all those years. And then many years later, I ended up being one of the teachers there at his workshops for quite a few years. And that was quite an experience at Jamie's camp. The second year I went back, I got in the top combo, I guess you would call it. And Joe Henderson was the teacher. And so that was Joe Henderson is was one of the living legends of the music. So getting to spend a week with him that was just a big influence. And then later I got to work with, Jack McDuff, great organist, and Stanley Turrentine Stanley I was with for almost 10 years. So all those were great experiences.
I have a question in the fact that you were traveling with Jack McDuff. How easy is it to, in a van, I understand, is how he transported his B3 organ. How do you transport easily an organ? It seems a bit cumbersome.
Yeah, it was actually a 14-foot box truck, I guess you would call it. A van, box van. I could write a book about those stories with Jack McDuff. Imagine a box van with the back third. There was a wall, and that's where the equipment went. The B3 organ, the Leslie, and guitar amps, and the PA, drums, everything. Then there was the front half was kind of a camper with a little couch, plank couch there, a couple of captain's chairs, and we drove all over the place in that thing and broke down quite a few times. It was they talk about paying your dues, and that would be a for sure. I got to pay some dues with Jack McDuff.
Now, you've also performed with several other organists, and I'm just wondering, is there something that you're drawn to with an organist versus playing with someone who performs on piano or keyboards?
Well, yeah, it's a different with organ. It's a kind of a classic sound that the guitar. It's a classic sound, that guitar and organ combination, and because the organist is kicking bass with his left hand, his or her left hand, and as well as with their left foot on the pedals, the bass pedals, and then playing chords or soloing with the right hand. And so when this organist is soloing with their right hand, there leaves a lot of space in there for the guitar to comp, and it it's like a glove, you know, the way that organ, a good organ player and guitar can fit together. And that's just the stuff I was listening to, you know, on Blue Note, you know, Grant Green with Larry Young and Elvin Jones and Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery, all those great organ records. It's also a certain groove that you get with the organ that's different than a piano and an upright bass, which is also great. But the fact that one man is, or one woman is playing the bass line and the chords, you know, it's really locks in, and it's a real groove.
You had also talked about spending a lot of time with Stanley Turrentine, and it was at that time that you had realized you needed to develop your own sound. Could you talk a little bit more about the importance of that?
Sure. Well, guys like Jack McDuff and Stanley Turrentine, plus all the musicians that I got to meet and play with, being around them, guys like, you know, Lou Donaldson, who we just lost, who just passed away, 98 years old, great alto player. Lonnie Smith, the organist, would come through. Jimmy Smith would come through. Freddie Hubbard I got to play with, Dizzy Gillespie. And all of these musicians, you know, once you become a jazz fan, not just a musician, you start to recognize their sound. You know, gets Kenny Burrell has a certain sound, Pat Metheny has a certain sound, Wes Montgomery, Jim Hall, all of them, and you can tell you can tell their voice in a few notes. So that would be one of the ultimate goals of a musician would be to have an identifiable sound. And that was something that I learned firsthand just from hearing Stanley every night, you know, how strong a player and how strong his feel and his groove and his, you know, his sound on the instrument. It was a very inspiring, you know, and getting to play with him night after night. I feel like that was I'm very lucky that I got to play with some of these masters and learn from them. And so I'm hoping that some of that experience I can pass on to the younger generation of students that I work with who, you know, didn't get the experience to not only play with them, but even to hear some of these greats. They were just too young. Well, the ones I just mentioned, I didn't get to play with, you know, a lot of them, but I'm grateful for the ones I did. Like I mentioned, guys like Lonnie Smith I played with, got to play with James Moody. I got to play with one gig with Dizzy Gillespie, one or two gigs, a few gigs with Freddie Hubbard. And, you know, a lot of people in the New York scene I've, you know, also got to play with that are more my contemporaries, who I also look at as some of the greats. But, you know, no, I didn't get to play with Sonny Rollins or Elvin Jones, two of my heroes, or McCoy Tyner, those kind of people. But I'm grateful for the experiences I had playing with the ones I did get to be in contact with.
Interestingly enough, so you are at William Patterson now teaching, and there's a young pianist there named Leonika Schubel, who I've interviewed, who just graduated from the program, and she was gifted Dr. Lonnie Smith's organ when she was a young girl.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that's what happened. Yeah, I've met her a few times. She's so talented. I just can't wait to see what she does.
Yeah, she really is going strong and going places.
Does
So
she sing as well? I think
she does not.
she
Her
doesn't sing. She
sister is
just
actually
plays.
an opera singer.
But she plays great piano, so I haven't heard her on organ yet, but I can only imagine.
I believe she was studying with Mike Lodon up at William Patterson.
Nice.
Hey, when you're composing, do you emphasize, like, how do you come across a composition? Are you thinking of a person? Are you thinking of a mood? Are you thinking of a specific type of song, you know, a waltz or a bossa or a ballad? How do you come across your compositions?
That's a good question. A lot of times, you're right, a mood. I'm looking for a mood or a groove or something like that that comes to me. Now that, you know, we have carry around a phone with us that has a recording feature on it, you know, even if it's just a voice memo, a lot of times if I come up with an idea, I'll play it into or sing it or play it into the phone and just save it. And then later, like if I have a record date coming up, you know, I'll start listening back to some of those ideas. And a lot of times I'll be able to take a little nugget of something that I had played and flesh it out and turn it into something. A lot of times my, you know, writing, I'm trying to create it's about the improvisation. So I'm trying to create a
Space for it?
Yeah, space for being able to play a certain way, create a certain mood. And, you know, I love to play standards as well, you know, the Great American Songbook and the great jazz classic songs. I like to do all that as well. But I sometimes writing some music can put you in a setting. I guess a setting is the word, where you can be creative in, you know. So a lot of times I'll be writing things and thinking about how certain people might play over this type of harmony and groove. And I've been lucky to have spent a lot of time in the studio and made quite a few records. So I've had the opportunity to do that, to play with a lot of the greats and bring them onto my records.
So when you are composing, and we'll call them they're your creations, your babies, and you're releasing them out to other musicians to workshop on a bandstand or for a recording, you're presenting them with a new composition, but is there a way for you to instruct them of the sound that you want to get, the groove, or do you, or have you worked with these musicians for so long that you just trust them to know where you want to go with it?
Well, a lot of times, like I said, I'll write out the music on a lead sheet with the melody and the chords, and the players that I'm lucky enough to play with are able to take that and put their own voices on it and create. That's what's so great about jazz. Sometimes I'll make a demo of me playing the song with the drum groove and put the bass on there. And, you know, if they want to, some people like to hear a demo, you know, of what's going to sound like, as well as having the music. So it's a combination of both of those things.
As you own your own record label, which is Strikezone, great name, by the way, do you find it more freeing for you as a producer, or does it add a different level of responsibility and or stress to you?
Well, I did recorded for many years on other labels. Mainly, main label was a label called Steeplechase, which is from out of Copenhagen. Nils Winter is the producer. I made about at least 20 records for him, about one a year for 20 years, starting in 90, I believe, or 91. And I was able to, it was a great opportunity. I was able to do all kinds of different projects, from trio to quartet to 8 four horns with rhythm section to big band, all kinds of different things. And but after a while, it became clear to me that I should just be doing this myself and have control over everything, from the album covers to the distribution. You know, when you're on another label, it's hard to have people hear the music the way you wanted. You know, you need to get it out into the hands of the writers and the radio people, and having your own label, I'm able to do that more. And you know, the team I have assembled to, you know, send out to publicity and send out to radio, that all helps to keep my music out there in the ears of people, and hopefully that can lead to more work, more gigs, more festivals, that kind of thing. It's definitely you know, a self-run operation. It's not a big label or anything, but it does the job.
So in January 10th, 2025, if I counted correctly, your 36th album as a leader is going to be released, and it's entitled Stryker with Strings Goes to the Movies.
That's right.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
I can't wait for you to hear this one. It's a project we worked on for about a year, and I was teaching at Indiana University for the last 11 years. I just retired this year, and the great arranger out there and the guy who runs the big band at Indiana University, his name is Brent Walrab, and we had an opportunity to. We were asked to do something for PBS. Wes Montgomery at 100. Wes at 100. It would have been his 100th birthday last year or 2 years ago, and they wanted to do a concert and film it in the PBS studio there in Bloomington. And so Brent arranged a bunch of Wes's music for big band and for string orchestra, and we also used some of the classic Wes Montgomery arrangements of Oliver Nelson. And so we that came out. It was quite a thing to take on. For one thing, Wes is one of my biggest heroes, and to try to pay homage to Wes and just try to be myself and play his music, and then have to do it in front of a orchestra, big band, and a 150 people audience in the studio with pictures of Wes Montgomery's giant pictures all over the place. It was just like it was daunting, to say the least. But it was, I just had to do my own thing. Anyway, after that, I said, Brent, we should do a project together. This it sounded so great what you did, and he agreed. And he has a group called the Buselli Walrab Big Band, and they had just done a beautiful project called the Jeanette Suite, which was something that Brent had arranged, and they had some backing, somebody that would put up the money, the Indianapolis, the Indiana Entertainment Foundation. And Brent said, I think I could get some funding. And so we started, kicking around some ideas. I didn't really want to record the West stuff. That was just too daunting. That's been done. And we did it on the TV show, which, by the way, won an Emmy, which I was really happy about. And so I said, how about we do, why don't we do movie themes? And he said, that's my two favorite things, movies and music. So we started making a list of our favorites, themes, movies, etc., and narrowed it down. And I would start making little demos of how I thought we could get into these themes where we could make them into jazz improvisational vehicles, and do something different with them. And that's what we did. We worked on it for about a year. We went in the studio and recorded it, and now it's coming out January 10th, 2025.
Well,
and my
very much
son was
looking
there.
forward.
He's a filmmaker, my older son, and he filmed the whole thing. So they're getting ready to put up some videos on social media, and can't wait for
Well,
you to
that's
see it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So playing with strings is not new to you. In one of your earlier CDs, As We Are, you had a rhythm section, and quite a rhythm section, if I might add, with a string quartet that was led by Sarah Caswell on violin. I just want to share a quote I had from you about playing with strings. Always wanted to do something with strings, making them collaborative and to integrate them into the music, not as a coloring or a sweetening that comes in later. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that record was amazing for me. We did that during that was one of the things that we worked on during the pandemic, and I worked with Julian Shore, the pianist and arranger. He was a former student of mine when he was like 14 at a Litchfield jazz camp. So it was cool, like 20 years later, to be collaborating on this record together. And that was kind of our goal to do something with string quartet, integrated into the band. And I think we accomplished that. And like you said, I had Brian Blade and John Patitucci in the rhythm section. And that was a real amazing I count my blessings for that every day. But couple of years later, here we are with a full orchestra now with 20 strings and a 30-piece studio orchestra on this new movie themed project. So really looking forward to this coming out.
You had mentioned earlier that you also play bass, but do you have any desire to play cello or any other string instruments since you enjoy working with them?
That'd be too much work. I'm too old. I just try to keep up my chops on the guitar, and yeah, no, I'm not up for that. Maybe I would consider trying to take some more piano lessons, if anything.
You had mentioned too about having being a big band as part of the music. In your 2020 CD you had called Blue Soul, it featured an accompanying big band. Would you like to talk a little bit about that CD?
Yeah, that was with the WDR big band out of Cologne, Germany, and my friend Bob Mintzer is the chief arranger and conductor for that group. And he had done some gigs with my organ trio as a guest. We've been friends for a long time, and I have a project called 8-Track that I did several records of, where I did tunes from the 70s that were on 60s and 70s that were on 8-Track, kind of pop tunes, put my own spin on them. And they were quite successful. And so we would always play some of those tunes on the gig. And Bob thought that might be a cool way to, to have me come over to Cologne for a week and play with the WDR big band. And it was great. We did a week. They have a full-time big band as well as 2 symphony orchestras in Cologne, WDR. And these guys are total pros. So and Bob had written some great arrangements. So we just rehearsed and we recorded all the rehearsals, and they rehearsed in a giant soundstage recording studio with total professional engineers. And then we did a couple gigs, one gig in Cologne, and then I think we did another one where we took a bus out to another town. And that came out so great. I ended up leasing the recording from WDR and putting it out on my label on that record you mentioned called Blue Soul. And you can hear we do a couple of those 8-track type things, as well as some of Bob's tunes, some of my originals, even a Stanley Turrentine blues on there. And in February, they're coming over for a tour of the United States, and they asked me to join them. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to do a couple nights at Birdland. We're doing the Elmhurst Jazz Festival outside of Chicago, and we're doing Pittsburgh for a couple nights. And so that should be fun.
Are you going to be focusing on the songs from the 8-track CDs?
We'll probably do, I think the Yellow Jackets group is actually going to be part of it on one of the concerts, but we'll be doing their own material. But I think they will be doing a couple of the records from that record we did together. They'll probably play a couple of those as well from Blue Soul.
I love having read up about the genesis of your 8-track CDs, which is a weird thing to say because 8-track and then CD are two totally different media. But the genesis was to allow a way to connect with people and to bring more people to music. And there's a really great quote here is, it all has to do with arranging the tune in a new, fresh way with different colors from different instruments. And I think that that's just genius.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. I should mention though that all these records are available on my website, which kind of takes you to a place called Bandcamp, and davestryker.bandcamp.com. You can find any of those 8-track records. Some of them are not on the streaming services because when I started the label, I wasn't I wasn't as excited about joining these streaming services because you don't make any money. They don't pay really. That's another subject. But my son who's in his 30s said, Dad, you got to forget it. You can't beat them. That's how people listen to music now. So partway through my label a few years back, I started putting everything up there. So, but if you want to hear that 8-track stuff, I think a lot of it you have to go and get it off my own site. But it was a lot of fun, and I still play some of that music on all my gigs. People really respond to hearing a song they know. They kind of hear that melody they know. You know, we did Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder. There's so much great stuff. And it's a way to communicate with people, to bring them in. You know, when they hear something they know, they feel like, you know, they're part of it,
Right.
and they are.
I'm going to add in at the end of this interview all your information about your website, your YouTube channel, your Facebook, your Instagram, and also about your teaching website, which I'd like to talk about now, which is artistworks.com. And I find it amazing that you even have the time, since you're teaching now at 3 different universities, so Rutgers, Montclair State, and William Patterson, which is also in Wayne. And then you have your online teaching. How are you doing this all?
Well, I do want to mention, you mentioned the other schools I teach at. I've been at Montclair State for many years. Oscar Perez is running the program there now, doing a great job. And I've been at Rutgers a few years now as well. Conrad Herwig and Mark Stasio have a great program there. And then the opportunity came for me to Bill Charlap contacted me about this year about taking over at William Patterson after the unfortunate passing of my good friend and all of our good friend Russell Malone. And I said, of course, and I'm very happy to be there. Great program that Dr. Dave Dempsey and Bill Charlap has, are continuing to curate and keep it going. And so many greats been through there, Rufus Reed, I think Thad Jones maybe even started there. But I knew Rufus Reed, who was one of my first teachers at that Jamie Ebersole camp I told you the year before Joe Henderson. Rufus was my combo teacher. On to James Williams and Mulgrew Miller, and now Bill. And I am very happy to be there. It's an honor. I feel like, this is what we have to do. We have to bring the next generation to keep this music going. And there's so much talent out there. I'm happy to try to just steer them, so that they can do their thing. And it's a good calling. I find it very gratifying. So, I'm at each of those schools one day a week. They're full days, but I get it done. And then I'm working a lot on the weekend and traveling around, and a lot of guys do the same thing. It's what we do. You'd have to do a lot of different things in this to make a living in this music. The opportunity, since I had decided to leave Indiana, where I was Indiana University, another great program. Tom Walsh leads there. Who David Baker, the legendary educator, and was there when I'd known him from those Ebersole camps, going all the way back to my teenage years. And then he followed me along and asked me to take over at Indiana. And I was there for 11 years. And but the fact that I had just left there made it possible for me to accept that offer from Bill to come in and start working with the guitar students at William Patterson, and which has reputation as one of the finest colleges for jazz music in the world. You can tell from the students that are there.
One of the things I've been very proud of here at the library is we've had a spring and a fall jazz series, and we highlight an ensemble every semester to perform here for our audiences. And it's really something that I find is important, that we need to promote the students and give them a place to play and to work on their craft and to share with the audience. So that's a great, I had the great great gratitude to David Dempsey and Pete McGinnis and Bill Charlotte for working with me to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So do you,
They do need a place to play. That anybody that can, I've actually got some things I'm trying to put together myself. So, that's all. It's all about getting out there and playing in front of people.
and getting out there to listen. It can be expensive, especially going into the city, and that's where I'm very happy that all of our library concerts are free, and it gives students an opportunity to get out and hear great jazz. I've been very fortunate to have incredible musicians perform here who are all playing in the city at Dizzy's and Mesro and Smalls and Shanghai Jazz, and it's been such a blessing. So I'm happy I can present that.
Yeah, well, I hope to be able to be a part of it soon.
Now, with your artistworks.com website, do you still work with students online, or
Yeah, so that's an online school that covers all styles of music, country, bluegrass, rock and roll, you name it. Everything's covered, classical. But they have a great jazz component, which Peter Erskine's the drummer, and John Patitucci's the bassist, George Whitty on keyboards, myself on guitar, and that's it's an interesting. It's called. They have an interesting way they do it. It's called VEs, video exchanges. So my lessons, several years ago, I flew out to Napa, where they were located, and filmed about 125 lessons. The shorter lessons, like 10 minute lessons on different subjects, and basic, intermediate, and advanced. And so the students sign up, and they go on the site, and they can pick say they want to learn Blue Bossa, a song Blue Bossa. They'll click on that lesson. There'll be a part of it will be me showing how I play the chords, how I play the melody, solo ideas that I use over that. They'll study that, and then they'll send a video into the website, which is called a VE, Video Exchange, and it sits in my thing that my file, whatever. And so about once a week, every Sunday or so, I go in and I listen to their submission of this, Blue Bossa, for instance, and then I play it and send a video back that goes into the queue, and so they're able to get some feedback, right? One-on-one, which was a good good thing. It's better than just like watching a YouTube video and checking it out. You actually have the instructor coming back and giving you some suggestions. So that's a really great artistworks.com. You can find my school on there, and and so that it does sound like I have a lot going on, and I guess I do. And I have to, I have a gig in Indianapolis this Friday. I need to start working on that music coming up with drummer Mike Clark and Mike Ladon on organ, and a great sax player out there, Rob Dixon. So that's how it works. You just one thing at a time, knock it out. Tomorrow I'll be at William Patterson. Thursday I'll be at Rutgers. And on Friday I'll be at Montclair State. Actually, this Friday I'll be in the airport going to Indy. But so it goes. I'm happy to be busy right now. My wife just retired, actually, so we're moving along, but I'm not ready to retire yet.
You bring me to one of my last questions here for you, is the fact that you said you're putting together the playlist for what you're playing later this week. What informs you as to what you're going to select? Is it a feeling? Is there a kind of emphasis on something that you're going to present? How do you put together that playlist?
Well, that's a good question. Well, for instance, this weekend I'm playing with somebody else's group. It's Mike Clark, the drummer's group. So he would be the one that between him and Mike Ladon, the great organ player, Mike also, as you know, teaches at William Patterson. they have a tunes they want to do, and I'm more of a sideman on this gig, so I'm learning some music, some new music for that. As far as if it's my gig, a lot of times I'm playing a combination of music that from my albums, like I'll throw a couple of the 8-track kind of things in there, but also I have a lot of original music that we'll play. I have a kind of a working group with an organist named Jared Gold, who went to William Patterson many years ago, and now lives in Wayne. One of the great organ players for sure, and he's been my kind of my right hand man for several years now, and McClenty Hunter is the drummer. He just moved down to take over the guitar chair at University of Central Florida in Orlando. So Steve Johns has been playing with us as well, and gig to gig, depending, what we're going to do. I know that we'll be working up some of these movie themes. I got to start getting together with Jared on that, because we'll be playing at Birdland in January, January 24, 25, and 26, which is a big gig, kind of a CD release. So we'll be playing some of the, small group version of some of these movie themes, which should be fun.
Well, before we wrap it up, I want to also mention that you have a book called Dave Stryker's Jazz Guitar Improvisation Method, Volume 3. Are there also Volume 1 and 2?
Yeah, Volume 1 and 2 are kind of incorporated into Volume 3. So in other words, Volume 3 is just 1 and 2, but now much more added, so I called it Volume 3. But it's just one book. But it started out as one. The next edition was Volume 2, which had 1. Now Volume 3 has 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, I use that in my teaching as well. It's very helpful, and I could say, work on page 34 and 35 for next week. And lots like exercises and ideas on playing over standard tunes.
It's interesting in hearing you talk, because when you talk about performing, like that's the label that I would give you. And then you talk about being an educator, and then that seems to be all encompassing. I truly don't know how you're balancing it all, because you are doing it all.
Well, thank you so much, Patty, but it's definitely a performer first, and always have been. That's what my dream was, to be, be an artist, as a player. And later on, I came into teaching gradually, and now it's people see some value in what I can offer as a professor, and I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to pass on some of the experiences I had getting to work with some of the greats, like Jack McDuff for a couple of years, and then Stanley Turrentine for 10 years, and as well as all the other musicians in the community that I've got to play with, and the experience I've had of making all these records and traveling all over the world, playing so many gigs. They see value in being able to share that with the younger generation of students coming up, and I'm happy to be at William Patterson, a new member there, new faculty, and as well as all the at Montclair State and Rutgers as well. Just trying to pass it on, be an inspiration, hopefully.
As I referenced earlier, there are many interviews with you, and I just want to give a nod to Bob Baker's interview with you while you were on vacation on the Jersey Shore through Jazz Guitar. So whoever's watching this, look it up. It's very interesting, because you talk about the 5 things to know to be a better musician. So we won't go over it here, because there's a wonderful interview you can watch through Bob Baker on Jazz Guitar with Dave Stryker. So thank you so much for taking the time. This has really been a pleasure, and I look forward to meeting you face to face sometime up at William Patterson.
Absolutely, Patty, and thank you for being so prepared, and maybe one of the best prepared interviewer I've ever had. Great.
Why, thank you.
You got it. Thanks for having me, and I hope to look forward to meeting you soon.
Thank you.